All right, talking to business fans, we've got a surprise for you. You hit it up, you ask for it, and we deliver. The future of OVW wrestling. Casey Reeves up in the house. Casey, welcome to Talking to Business, man. We've got the Coors Light. We got Jim Beam. This is going to be a fun show, but this is going to be a unique show because fans, you asked for it, and we're going to deliver. You wanted to know where the story of Casey Reeves, this guy that has brought a lot of spark and a lot of rumors going on in the OVW world these past couple of months. Who is this guy that already just showed up out of nowhere? I've heard the word lackey, I've heard the word bitch, I've heard the word asshole, I've heard the word heel. Boy, people are just buzzing about you. And how long now have you been on TV with OVW?
2 months.
2 months. So you asked for it, we're delivering it, but in a different type of show because we got a story to tell, and you've got a story to tell, my friend. Agree?
Agreed.
All right, so let's do this. And to tell a story, you got to start from the beginning. So let's talk about Montana.
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 What do you want to know about Montana?
So where does the story of Casey Reeves start in Montana, my friend?
Well, I have 2 hometowns.
Okay.
They're both really tiny. Nobody's ever heard of them. One of them's called Miles City. The other one's called Broadus. One has about 400 people. The other one has about 8,000.
Okay. Is that including animals or that's human beings, right?
You include the animals, we might have a city.
Oh, okay.
I was a son of a ranching woman and a trucker.
Okay.
Don't really know the trucker that well. I don't think any of my siblings do. I grew up in a real small town, real basic values, and I didn't stay there too long though. Not really. I think by the time I was 9, I was already getting locked up.
Oh wow! So this is how do I explain this? A roller coaster of a story, a ride to get to where you're at today.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
I really can't imagine it happening any other way, but I couldn't imagine it happening to anybody else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and I think that's the fans don't know this story, and I know a little bit about it now, and it's unique. So let's go into this. You and the Popo don't get along. Maybe is that a nice way of saying it? Or you've had your differences. Maybe that's a nicer way of saying it.
I'd love it to be something cool like that.
Okay.
I really would. But I honestly I can't say that it's anything nearly as cool as that. What really happened for me and what I spent most of my time in jail for was something I never even did. I watched something happen. I was there when it happened, and this is how I learned the term guilty by association. And after losing roughly 7 years of my life, here I am. Basically, it goes way back. First time I was locked up. So I guess you could say for a while I didn't get along with the police.
Early teens
on.
and things
Shit,
as such.
yeah. First time I ever had my own apartment, I was 12, 13.
Oh wow.
And when you're that age, you're asking for trouble, and trouble comes to you like a magnet. Everybody hears about the kid that's got the party house, and suddenly you're the cool guy, and you got it all at your fingertips, man. You got booze, you got drugs, you got whatever you want. And this type of lifestyle continued on, off and on, because I kept getting locked up, kept getting, let go, locked up, let go, locked up, let go. And to where I find myself at 16 years old, I'm living on my own. I don't really have a family. I still have the same crappy friends, and I have a very, very serious meth habit. And me and these 3 other cats were out, drinking and driving around one night. And I want to savor it, gotta make it last.
Oh, no, most definitely.
One of the few spots back in Miles City that you could hang out with was a cemetery, because we were those deep kids. And there was a statue,
Okay.
hand carved, pure marble, worth $128,000.
Wow.
And one of the boys I was with was trying to impress one of the girls we were with, and he knocked it over. The head shattered, the wings broke off. It was an angel, by the way. I don't know if I included that little
No,
detail.
you didn't.
Okay.
It's okay.
I'm sitting here laughing about it. It was a terrible thing. They rushed back in the car. I was in the car with my girlfriend at the time. And as soon as everybody gets into the car, we start smoking a bowl. And I go, right, everybody, we don't tell anybody about this. Like, well, yeah, of course not. I go home, everybody goes home, and then the next day my phone's ringing off the hook. Like, Phil, what the fuck happened at the cemetery? Like, what do you mean? Oh, no, we heard you tied up some chains and got a pickup truck and you just... Who's that? Nah, last I checked, so-and-so broke it. I don't want to say any names.
Oh, no, it's fine.
And I had to leave my apartment. I had to go hide out, and of course they found me. And I just kind of stood my ground when they interviewed me. I'm 16 years old, and I think I'm clever. I want my phone call, even though nobody has a right to a phone call. I want this, that, the other thing. Reading my testimony now as an adult, because they give you those transcripts, is hilarious, because you have this kid that's watched way too many movies. And basically, I just was like, well, I don't know. I wasn't there. Couldn't tell you. Wasn't there. And then you read everybody else's testimonials, and it's a lot different.
Yeah.
The girl who was my girlfriend at the time ended up calling Crime Stoppers that night.
Oh, it threw you under the bus.
What? Oh,
Did
yeah.
she throw
us all under the bus.
Oh!
What turned into a couple kids drinking, smoking some pot, and then, a dude knocking over, because he pushed it over.
He didn't, so there was no chains
No,
involved?
there's no chains or anything
Okay.
like that. But according to her testimony, we humped it, we did satanic stuff.
I was wondering if that was going to go down that route.
Yeah,
you know, the devil.
Oh,
and,
God.
This cult and oh, jeez.
Yeah.
So, young man, if you're out there and you're 16, 17, please learn from this story. You can't trust it at that age. I promise you.
You can't trust any of your friends.
But anyway.
Anyway, yeah, she called Crime Stoppers. She got $1,000 for this.
Oh, so she sold you out for $1,000.
$1,000. It's fine. She wasn't that pretty or interesting. And hi, Jennifer.
I've got to do something in the show, but doses.
So I ended up getting locked up again, and this is. At 16, I had already had a history of getting locked up since I was 9, off and on. And whether it was boys' homes, foster care, sometimes they were these things that they called treatment centers, where basically, you just saw a lot of horrendous things happen to children. Like a lot of bad
things happen.
Bad shit happen to kids.
There's a lot of us that go through, maybe not as extreme, but similar stories.
Yeah. And to me, so I guess I kind of developed a chip on my shoulder, especially for authority figures.
Yeah.
You can't see the shit that I had seen all the way up, and this was just the beginning. I was 16 and I'd already seen all this shit. And then they put me away in a boys' prison. They call it Pine Hills. It's a maximum security daycare. Mm-hmm. I actually enjoyed it. It was.
What was it? Why?
Well, because they didn't medicate me.
Okay.
Every other place I was at, they just filled me up with pills and Thorazine, and I was one of the first 200 people in the United States to get tested for Seroquel.
Really?
Yeah, when I was 14.
Wow.
I was one of the first. When they started me on it, they didn't even have how they give you a pamphlet for medications, and they didn't have any of that because there was no real research on it. I remember at one point I had become anemic just because I was on so many medications. I saw a lot of abuse happen to those kids. The stuff I don't really want to bring up.
No, and it's fine, but I think it gives us a basis for the road. And what I mean that is, not all, all of us have that family structure where mom and dad are there and they've been saving away for college and they teach the right things, you grow up in this environment, sometimes the road is different for different people. I know, for speaking for me and Mom, if you're watching this one, I grew up in a household of a single mother, and it was me and my sister, and my mother did not have a high school diploma. She got a GED, she busted her ass, she became an apartment manager, and there were some hard damn roads and hard lessons to learn as I helped raise a sister because my mother worked 65 hours a week. So there was difficulty in that. Now, to your extreme, no, but I think it's important to understand where it starts.
Well, my mom was a single mom too, and bless her heart, she's a saint. The things that came my way, they were instances of kind of out of her control. Nothing but love from Ma. She worked 12 hours a day for less than $5 an hour.
Yep.
For me and my two older sisters. And sometimes you just have a wild child.
Yeah, that happens.
It happens.
So where does the maturity start to come in and you go, okay, well, what am I going to do? And where does wrestling start to come into play here?
Wrestling was always there.
Okay. From when?
I think I was 2 or 3. We had a little 13-inch black and white TV. It still had the dial on the side. So back in the day when you got cable, you had to get the little box on top of your TV and man. So
the little buttons.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as a remote control.
No.
You had to go up and hit the button to make it change the channel.
You youngins are just spoiled. And I remember flipping through, and my first memory of wrestling is a Macho Man promo.
Oh, nice.
And I couldn't tell you what promo it was. I just remember him repeating the phrase Macho Man and talking about how awesome he was. And I remember watching this guy and just thinking this was the coolest guy I had ever seen. And I remember my mom coming into the living room, seeing that I was watching wrestling and turning it off.
Oh, wow.
You don't want, it's too violent, blah, blah. So, of course, I'm hooked. Just like that. And I would watch it anytime after that. And in Montana, it's a wasteland of wrestling. You have WCW and WWF, and I didn't even catch on to WCW until I was about 9.
Okay.
I think. And so I grew up, in my formative years, a big Hulkamaniac. I loved Hulk Hogan, but I also liked, I liked guys with cool tights. So I liked Rick Rude. I thought he was cool. I didn't know why, because he always did bad things, but I thought he was cool. I thought Jake was cool because he had a snake. I hated Andre because he hurt Hulk Hogan on Saturday Night's Main.
Most definitely. And see, when I think of WWE, I get the Jake thing. Obviously, I was a big Steamboat mark. There was such a uniqueness to the character. And when to this day, you go babyface, I say Steamboat. He's the epitome of what a babyface is.
Well, when you watch Steamboat, you want him to win, even if he's fighting your favorite guy. I don't know why.
Most definitely.
He's just got that intangible.
So, okay, we got this beginning, but where does it become where, to me, to be successful in whatever you do, you have to have a thirst that cannot be quenched. So, at this point where you're going through the childhood that you have, where does this desire start to build that as soon as you're past this stretch, you know what you want to do?
I think I knew I wanted to do it by the time I was 12. I really do. I got introduced to WCW, Sting, Cactus Jack, changed my life.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it was just one of those things where, like I said, it's a wasteland out there, so you have no idea how to break into it. I knew that there was a wrestling world outside of WCW and WWF because I bought every issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and that's how I knew. And I would read in there how there's schools, but they were just so far away, and I'm a kid with no money, stuck in the middle of nowhere, and so I think like a lot of kids who feel trapped and that they'll never accomplish what they want in life, I just decided to cause trouble instead, and that was a lot easier for me.
Okay.
And I ended up taking the easy way for the next 15 years of my life. Let me see, like I was 16, I get locked up, and when I'm 18, there's still so much money to be paid off of that damn statue. They just transfer me over to adult supervision immediately.
Okay.
You know, so I turned an adult award of the state. And they let me out, I was 19, I think. And, but that was actually one of the first things I remember asking my probation officer, can I leave somewhere, you know, to pursue school, this, that, the other thing. No, you have to stay here.
Oh, wow.
So I just went back to doing what I do best, and that's, you know, drinking, smoking, fucking fighting. Just getting into trouble. And man, I could tell you a lot of good war stories of getting into trouble, but
I think we all have our stories
oh,
like
yeah.
that one, man.
And that's the thing. That's exactly the point. We all have that, and I was sick of doing something that anybody could do, and I was kind of trapped in this hell, and I ended up getting so deep into trouble that I got locked up again. You know, because when you're on parole, you can violate your parole, but they can't start your time over. When you're on probation, they can. And they kept starting mine over and over and over. And the last time they actually locked me up was a 3-year stint. But it wasn't in prison, and it wasn't in boot camp. We had requested it. They decided, because of my upbringing, because of my childhood and stuff, to send me to a sanitarium, state hospital. So I spent 3 years with the literally craziest group of murderers and pieces of shit Montana had to offer.
Nice.
And you learn a lot really quick. Really quick. You see a lot of heinous shit. The stuff I saw when I was a kid, it was...
Nothing. It's a whole
nothing. Oh, it is. It is, you know.
But in this, and I'm not...
Yeah, no worries.
We'll get there. You're in this, and God, I can only imagine the images, because I know my own stories and some of the ones I've heard in my life, saying that there has to be a moment of clarity. And I think that's where I'm trying to get, is where does the clarity go and go, okay, something has to change?
Build up to WrestleMania 19.
Build up to WrestleMania 19?
Yeah, well, we had Cable in there.
Okay.
Booker T.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Booker T was a prime example of somebody that he can go all the way. You can be at the bottom. You can be at the bottom.
And Booker T has been well at the bottom. Let's be honest.
Oh, yeah. And he's been at the complete top.
Oh, most definitely.
And regardless of how that match ended, I mean, I'm living vicariously through Booker T at this point in my life.
Interesting.
And so when I get out, I'm just dead set I'm going to wrestle one way or another. Well, they tell me the same thing. You can't leave the state of Montana.
Okay.
So I started backyarding.
Okay.
But I didn't want to do that ultra-violent backyard crap that I saw. And it's not, you know, it's not ripping on any, I guess it is kind of ripping on the ultra-violent backyard shit, but I didn't want to, I don't like doing the same thing other people are doing, so I had decided, because I met a couple people in jail that wanted to do it with me, you know, one, light tubes and thumbtacks cost money.
And they hurt like hell. I don't care. There's no nice way of taking
it. They hurt
it.
like hell. But well,
you land on thumbtacks, kids. It hurts.
Yeah,
There's no nice way of saying it,
but we had a very different philosophy because we couldn't even afford a ring, so we would put rope in a square in the yard, and I always thought, well, what's more brutal than taking a choke slam on solid ground?
That is tough.
So that was our philosophy. You know, we didn't have a whole bunch of you know, like high jumping over the, you know, off the roof and stuff like that. We would have a match, and sometimes you'd see some weapons, but they were more props than anything. But in the end, it would usually come down to a big move done onto the ground. You know, I remember we finished a match one time with a vertical suplex.
Interesting.
You know, because it's.
But you're on the ground.
Yeah, it's a big move.
Yeah.
You know, because I was just so frustrated. I couldn't leave. I'm stuck in this small town. I can't go anywhere. So I was like, maybe I'll just do this and just pour everything I have into this to where I can at least get that artistic satisfaction.
But something happened. Something happened where you could live. Because obviously you're here today. We got to go into why OVW. Because let's be honest. There are so many great training schools out there. You mentioned Booker T. He's got his thing
Yep,
down in Houston.
yep.
The Dudleys have their thing in Orlando. You want to talk about Tommy Dreamer, what he's got going on at the House of Hardcore. You can go to Rikishi, what he's got going in California. The Stoner Brothers, what they've got. Lou Cost out in Louisiana. There are a million great schools right now. So let's talk about why OVW.
Well, to get there,
Okay.
because I'm 33.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't start training until I was 32. See, at this point when I'm backyarding, I'm 23, 24. So there's like a 10-year gap. And what happened is I hurt my leg multiple times. And I listened to the people around me saying, you shouldn't do this, you can't do this. And it stuck with me. And so I pursued my other passion, which was music. And I made music for the most of the rest of my 20s. I attempted college, it didn't work out. I hurt my leg again, which really messed with me. And then a wrestling camp opened up in Montana. So it was like, cool, it's finally here. It kind of got that spark going for me again after years and years of inactivity. And two guys ran it, Lee Coyle and Seamus McCarthy. Seamus McCarthy was known as Seamus the Famous down in Deep South Wrestling.
Okay.
He was a WWE developmental guy who got a back concussion, decided to come back to Montana, finish his education, and just for fun, he was going to run a wrestling camp. And he was a great teacher. He was the head trainer. Lee Coyle was the owner, and he was kind of a trainer, but you could tell his heart wasn't into training.
Okay.
I just don't think he had the fundamentals for it. Well, Seamus, about 3 months into our training, gets a tumor on his brain, and he made it less than 4 months after that.
Wow.
And I missed. He was a hell of a guy. One of the best guys I've ever met in my whole life. And so then you have, to just have it right there. You're so close. We were going to be running a show, and we actually had Austin Aries set to appear at our opening show at the Montana Fair.
Now that's not cheap.
No,
well, let's be honest. We're talking about.
Yeah, we're talking about a few grand.
Big Aries fan, yeah, most.
And there were rumors that Waltman was going to be there too. Like we were going to throw a lot of money to get Frontier State Wrestling in there. Seamus was the heart of that place, and when he died, the whole thing went down. Him and Kofi Kingston were actually roommates that broke in together. So, he knew everybody. That's how he could make all this happen. And so when that happened, I'm kind of a drama queen. I just kind of set in my mind, like, the fates have decided that this isn't for you. And I just went to Alaska. I went to Alaska and I drank myself stupid for a few months.
Okay.
Came back home. Decided I'm going to open a comic book store because wrestling's dead. My leg is too hurt. I need to be a realist. I'm in my late 20s. I'll never be a wrestler. Because that's what a realistic person would do. I moved back to a town in Montana, Billings. That's where I was making music and doing the backyard stuff earlier. Making music just didn't do it for me anymore. Having a good job and a nice place to live wasn't doing it for me anymore. I had every single comfort in life, and I was the most unsatisfied person on the planet. And a little over a year ago, January of 2014, my older brother, stepbrother, but we were raised together, while I was still in the home, he passed away at 35. And he wasn't ever supposed to make it to 35.
Understood.
He was, he was on dialysis by the time he was 20 years old. And I remember sitting at his funeral, and I'm looking at him, and I realized that this guy never felt sorry for himself. I had plenty of reasons to feel sorry for myself, and I used that to hold me back my whole life. And this guy had more reasons than I ever would. But since he knew that he was running on limited time, he never wasted a day of his life. Never, not once. And I'm sitting there, I'm 32, like, what the hell is my problem? Why am I feeling sorry for myself? This guy had an amazing life. And I, within weeks, I was just dead set. I'm leaving Montana. I quit my band. It was fun, you know. Poor guys. They'd been putting up with me flaking out, and just they could tell I wasn't into it for a while. I didn't show up for practice again. They're like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm selling all my stuff. Moving to Kentucky. Going to be a pro wrestler."
Wow. Wow.
I decided.
So why Kentucky though? Because I've got to know why Kentucky.
I wanted to go somewhere with a track record.
Well,
and I wanted to go somewhere that, like I said, I'd already been to a camp with guys I had never heard of.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to go somewhere with guys I had heard of, and not just guys that I had heard of. My favorite wrestling has always been the old shit, man.
Mm-hmm.
Always has been. And when I heard Danny Davis's podcast on Art of Wrestling and on the Steve Austin show.
Oh, but and JR also.
Oh, yeah,
he was on JR also.
I was like, I want to go learn from Danny Davis and Rip Rogers. Like, I was dead set. I was like, those are the brains I want to pick, because those guys love it. They appreciate it. They've seen it all. They've done it all, and it's a dying art form, and I want to learn from those old masters before they completely fade away.
And like I said, I will say it a million times, to be successful in whatever you do, you have to have a thirst that can't be quenched. You have to have a drive and a desire that no one can stop. I know for what I do for a living, and I don't do this for a living, this is fun, but for what I do for a living, man, I've got to work harder, longer, and it's a dying art form. To teach someone how to manage people, it is a complete dying art form.
Oh, yeah.
They'll teach you about the type of business you're running, but they don't teach you how to manage people. That's something where you learn. So now you're going to two guys who've got years of passion and drive.
Decades.
It's crazy.
Seen it all done, and every week I get to sit there and learn from Rip fucking Rogers. And if you say Rip Rogers without the fucking in there, you've never met him.
The stories we can go on with Rip Rogers, that's a whole nother level.
And what's fantastic about it for me is that you take this thing, because I considered myself a smart fan, a smart mark.
Okay. Yes,
and the more you learn, the more you realize that nobody knows shit about wrestling. Nobody knows a damn thing about wrestling. Anybody who thinks they do is a fucking idiot.
And I am. I pretend like I know.
I am too. Even Rip will call himself a fucking retard all the time, because that's wrestling's just like painting. It's like music. It's an art, and there is no one set way to do it, but there are plenty of wrong ways to do it, or plenty of shitty ways.
Shitty ways,
not necessarily wrong, because there is no wrong way to perform any art. But for me, and for what I find to be the art of wrestling, I had to learn from a guy like Rip Rogers, and when I found out Danny wasn't running his class anymore by the time I got here, that broke my heart. But I gotta say, I would have never made it to Rips if I didn't have an awesome coach like Matt Capitelli in there, and anybody, even that has a twinkle in their eye of wanting to learn about pro wrestling and is nervous, is scared, out of shape, whatever. Matt Capitelli is the guy to learn from.
And saying that, folks, we're like 5 chapters in to a story that I know you're hooked into. This is just part 1. We gotta go part 2. Do we agree?
I'm for it.
You're down for it?
Yeah, I'm down.
So
we're gonna have to refill.
Yeah, we gotta refill. And fans, it's real simple. You asked for this. We're giving it to you. A story that you're not going to forget. This was part 1. Part 2's coming next. This is where we get into the training, and there's a little friction I'm feeling with you and Josh Ashcraft that we got to get into, and some other things. There's a lot of stuff still to discuss. The story's just beginning. Folks, you're not going to want to miss it. You like this, but I already know you did. Part 2, Casey Reeves, got to give him a refill. And as only as I can say, deuces!